Hello and welcome back to another happy hour. I'm Ryan Fring, creative director here at Backflip. So excited actually for this happy hour. But first, I must introduce John, other creative director here. Say hey, John.
Hey, John.
We're getting so good at this. we're
I
only like
figured out where
60
you
in.
were that time.
Exactly. Good to see you. You're at home. I'm at the office. You can't actually see the light. I gotta try to fix it someday so that you can actually see the Fantasy Factory unicorn with a cat on it because that's so great. But all right, we're here for another happy hour, and we're so excited because joining us today is good friend, and I gave like a huge title to you, but we got Julia Smith joining. Let's see if I can throw up this title. Ooh, I don't have John. There we go.
Dude, it's the title just moves us off the screen.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
credit.
yeah.
Mm,
What did I put? Executive. What do you? Account exec, producer,
hmm
marriage and family therapist, and just entrepreneur all around.
hmm
So thanks, Julia, so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you guys for having me.
We're super stoked, and we were talking a little bit about it before, um, but since it's a happy hour, we'll just talk
hmm
about our drinks real quick. Um, I'll let you go ahead first.
So I'm drinking LaCroix limoncello, which is to me the best flavor of the LaCroix line, and it's delicious. And then I just have water too
Got to
today.
stay hydrated. That's
Gotta stay
good.
hydrated. It's dry outside.
Yeah. And I am also drinking, so I'm drinking Clarb here, which is the cheap LaCroix. This is the Costco LaCroix, but made in Wisconsin. Because Julia, you got me on sparkling water. I don't know if you
Yes.
remember that when we were in maybe San Francisco,
hmm
we were at an Italian place and you had ordered some sparkling water and it was the good stuff.
It was good.
And before that,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is the worst.
Yeah.
But after having that, now I drink it. I'll drink 3 or 4 of these a day, easy.
I think there had been like one shoot we had all gone on, and I was so sick of drinking bottled water that I just like randomly like went to Costco and bought a bunch. And then Jordan Post, particularly, everyone went like the crew was like, oh, sparkling water, and it's like gone. I'm like, oh, that was a hit. I guess I'll just go ahead and buy more of that for every shoot.
Yeah, clearly this is more popular.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, we go through cases of it as well. I'm also drinking, let's see, some Chu-Hee. So you always got to be repping. I'm super repping today. So we got a bag flip hat, we got Paradigm gear, and some Carbon 4. That's super great. So that's what I'm drinking. What do you got, John?
Heck, when do I get my shirt?
Yeah, I get all the cool stuff.
You're gonna
Yeah.
have to give us some stuff about
This
that.
is awesome.
Okay,
This is a
so
partner of ours. He's a native guy, so it's like a native agency. Like their rebrand right here.
fascinating.
It's a P. Let's see if I
In
can articulate. Hmm.
in honor of Julia, I took more time on this drink today to because I was like Julia would appreciate something nice. So I've got the camera. Oh no, it goes this way. Um, it's brandy from Drink Wisconsinably brandy.
Oh wow.
Amanda got it. And then it has a classic old fashioned syrup from Proof. Uh, Proof, Proof, I think is the brand.
Hmm.
Uh, and I've got it with orange, muddled orange, and there you go. And
Yeah.
it's as is Sazerac the right word?
hmm
I keep okay. That's the style. There's no soda in it or anything. Um, I don't have giant ice cubes, but yes.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Yeah,
Yes.
what's the difference between a Sazerac and I don't know, an old fashioned? I guess you just went through what was in there, but I always thought too.
Also,
You just sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's no soda. Like no,
Okay.
there's it's just the brandy or bourbon or whatever, and the syrup.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then usually served like usually poured over one of those big square ice cubes or something nice like
hmm
that.
Sure. I think I'm confused too because like old school old sugar distillery downtown. I think they might put Ozu in it, so it
Oh
gives it
my.
a slightly different flavor. It's amazing. But that, I
Mm,
think that was my introduction to the Sazerac. Yeah.
wow.
Good. All right. Well, let's start. For those who don't know you, Julia, like, what's your story? How did we get to here today?
Yeah. So
And
how do
and
we
this
get?
is this is going to be so great.
It's gonna be like 20 minutes, so buckle up, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, let's see. I in 2014, 2012, I guess would be the time to start. So I was working in the mental health field for a long time. That's what I did. It was sort of my career that I chose to do. And in 2012, some friends I played volleyball with like reached out and were like, "Do you want to do a short film this week? Like in 2 months?" And I was like, "Sure, I don't care. Like that sounds like fun." And so it was a 48-hour film contest, and so that was with like TC and those folks. And so I did that in 2012. It was filling in, and that was really fun. And then the following year did the noise, and that's how I think I met the two of you at your studio
Hmm.
over on off of Willie Street, off of
Yep. Yep.
Baldwin Street.
Hmm.
And then this is the part I have a terrible memory, but I don't know if we started the Princess Night then. I think the Princess Night started from 2012 to 2013 as well.
Hmm.
I'm not 100% sure. And so then, but we did the noise, and that did really well. I think it won that year for the 48. And then it went to, it was like the city winner or whatever. And then, but that's how I met you guys. And then I think that was with Princess Night too, as the assistant director. And you guys came on board to do all the camera work and build those sets. You guys remember building those sets in that tiny Baldwin Street location?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's amazing. Like, we'll have to maybe do like a behind the scenes sometime where you see it,
Seriously.
and like there was no room. There was
There was
zero
no,
room.
it was a very intimate setting. I'm shocked that I mean, like sets and things were built in that space.
Yeah.
So then I did that, and what I learned through the noise and then doing some filmmaking was that I actually had a lot of experience managing, kind of regardless of the field I was in. And producing is just really managing and event planning. Like
Hmm.
that's all it is. It's like you need a bunch of stuff. It needs to show up, and then you have to tell people what to do. And but I had to learn all the lingo and stuff. So I started doing that. And so then in 2014, I got really burned out at my job for a variety of reasons, which I understand so much more now. And so I left the field. And what I remember was your old producer, Aaron, I think went to grad school. And
Yep.
so this goes to taking risks, everybody. This is like my whole life has been about risk taking versus safety, right? Like risk versus safety and things like that. And so I still remember, Ryan, like I was like leaving my house. So I still have like the memory of calling you. And I think I left you a voicemail, and I was like, "Hey, if you're replacing Aaron, you should just hire me."
Yes. Yeah. There's.
And so you did. And so I was able to like just walk away from a field that was at the time for me, it just wasn't working. And just really heal my body, heal my mind, and heal spiritually. There was a lot of things that I was not, I was burned out, and it happens. Everybody gets burned out. People get burned out in the video production
Hmm.
field too. So I came and started working for you guys, and it was so much fun. And I'd learned so much, and just was getting to do producing, but also just not having to, like, really learning a lot about myself and understanding how like empathic I was and highly sensitive, and working with all of you, where it was just like people just come do their jobs and go home and not like have to worry so much about other people and things like that. And so it taught a lot about me, about like boundaries and things like that. So then I did that for a while. I think I was with you guys until 2016, and then I know I was laid off because there wasn't a ton of work, and so that was a huge bummer
Yeah.
um, when that happened. And then
Real quick too on
yeah,
bringing you on. I want
yeah,
to before we talk about the layoff, which sucked, and we talked about before, like, this will be awkward. We'll talk about it.
mhm,
It'll be great. Um,
yeah,
but I remember being on shoots, and you producing, and
mhm,
just kind of coming in and being an organized person and just doing it.
mhm,
And what really kind of sold me is I was like, as the cinematographer and production house, we kind of had a lot of say and a lot of sway. But you doing your job as producer, you had
mhm.
a talking with me when I showed up late without talking to anyone beforehand,
Yes,
and you had
that's
a stern talking, and I was like, this is a person that we need for
yeah.
production. And that was kind of acknowledging your
Mhm.
kind of natural skill set there. And I think
Yeah.
that's just a fun part of that story.
Well, and I think, the other thing you brought was a level of confidence because it was like, we're not looking for somebody who will only treat us as somebody that they're working for. It was like we needed that person who is like, this is what needs to happen. This is the time. I need you to get there at this, and what like need you to like do the producing thing.
Yeah.
And coming at it from, I mean, that speaks a lot to your personality because coming at it from not a lot of professional production experience, it was production experience on the side that we had seen
Hmm.
in those
Hmm.
48 that we were working on, but it was enough to be like, yeah, yeah, Julia's totally got this.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I used to like joke that we need somebody who can sort of take like, okay, I've got all this going on, and now it's yours.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then I'd take it and be like, let's organize it and put it in a path. And it's like, it's so interesting because of like, I think about like management and I'm like, producing is managing.
Hmm.
Like it's like creating the schedule and making all the stuff and making sure everyone arrives on time. And so it was like, it wasn't something I'd ever thought that like producing seems well, and we could talk a little bit about like there's all different kinds of producing, right? And I think the producing I was doing, particularly at Backflip, I think they would call line producing.
Hmm.
It's like getting all the things so that the shoot can happen seamlessly. Was just something I've always really enjoyed doing, and I think I liked it because of the variety too, and getting to be around the people. So,
Hmm.
but it was always fun doing all the going on shoots, except for the early calls. Those I didn't like.
Yeah, early. I mean, it's such an interesting part of the business too,
Mhm.
and that's. I mean, I guess that's a nice thing to be able to count on a producer to be able to think outside the box. Like, do we need to go earlier? Can we go later? Like, time has no boundary, space has no boundary. We have to
Yeah.
creatively problem solve. And I'm curious, like, before producing with us,
Mhm.
what was, because you're obviously a creative problem solver,
Mhm.
what was your outlet, what was your creative problem solving outlet, because that's a
Gosh, that's a good question.
it's such a critical skill that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When I worked, the company I worked for before was called IDS, and I think it was in the 2010 or so. We moved clinics, so like we had to move and open a clinic, and me and a handful of other women were sort of like in charge of doing that.
Hmm.
We're walking into a space that needed a lot of work, and being like, okay, we're going to move this here, and how are the kids gonna like where are the treatment rooms going to be, and this needs to get out of here, and like wrangling people to do that. And so I think I got a lot of that in my job, and so I didn't have to do as much of it outside as a hobby. um, and then what's weird too, is like coming from a world of 48s where it's like, oh, we have to shoot something in literally 48 hours as being like a super stressful thing.
Hmm.
And then coming to work and being like, oh, we have 2 months for this shoot. Oh, great. Like pre-production then really became
Yeah.
like, like versus just like being stressed out at 4 o'clock on a Friday and going, okay, we got to make all this happen. And,
Whatever
you know,
happens happens, yeah.
right, right. Like we have to find a new location like that. And so then you start really thinking outside of the box that way.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's been such a long time since we've done anything like that. We really, I don't know, I know you have been directing too, and we'll
Yes.
get back to your story, but I would love to help, help shoot or produce or provide the, you know crew and stuff for one of your joints, because I know
Oh,
you've also
yeah.
jumped into directing too.
Yeah. Yeah. Directing is fun because well, it's interesting because of like I'm working in mental health now. So now we're jumping ahead, but what are people's motivations? Why are they doing the things that they are doing?
Mm.
What's these are behaviors, but what's the underlying motivation? And that's kind of the fun thing about um, directing. And then with directing too, as you guys both know, it's like you watch. I mean, I think of what I just did, Mime Sublime, and I watched that film and there was an angle I really wanted to shoot and I did it. And then I watched and I was like, oh, what was I thinking? That was terrible. And like wanting to go back and like get better and better at it. And like, why didn't we just shoot the whole thing in this direction? That kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah.
It's fun to work with actors. And then, but I've always been spoiled because I work with Jeff and Max, who are like like huddle up for 2 minutes. They're like, okay, we know our lines. And you're like, action. And they do it perfectly. And you're like, great, go, let's move on. Not having the experience of people struggling more with lines and things like that.
Yeah. Well, you should definitely get some experience in that because that is the best.
Yeah.
When people, you know, it's like Friday afternoon and your location just fell through and you need a
Yeah.
location in 4 hours. It's
Yeah.
that. You have
Yeah.
10 people standing around, actors
Right.
can't do something. How do you
Mm-hmm.
know, what do you do? That's so
Mm-hmm.
much fun.
Yeah, it's funny because yeah, the workshop in the 48s is probably one of the best places for anyone to get experience.
It
We
is.
had a
Hmm.
we had a shoot recently where um, things fell through, testimonials fell through. We didn't end up getting those. We're like, well, maybe we can get some B-roll while we're shooting this other scene. We got to travel from here all the way to the other side of town. Um, and then at the end of the day, the client was like, could we maybe get some stuff that's like in an operating room? And, we're in our studio and we set up a makeshift operating room and it looks pretty amazing. I mean, we'll see. We'll
Considering.
see what doctors think when they see
Mm-hmm.
the final thing. But um, yeah, just thinking on your feet like that is
Mm-hmm.
be fun. I was going to say the thing with directing that's interesting, or any creative. I mean, this could apply to producing as well as directing, but you're like your last thing that you have, like whatever you're currently working on, is usually the thing that you think is better and is the best, but what you always have to show is the last thing
Yeah.
that you did. So it's always this like you want to improve, but then you have to like not get so down on yourself that
Mm-hmm.
you won't even show that last thing because otherwise you lose all the value of that,
Right.
if you're not willing to put that forward. So
Mm-hmm.
it's dynamic.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to the
So,
story. So the
sure.
the backflip layoff
Yep. The backflip
sucked.
layoff sucked bad. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that was kind of what was really hard because it obviously, because it just is and things like that. And understanding why it happened. I mean, it was the election year and it just felt like, and I don't know if this is what you guys remember, but like kind of like October hit right before the election and it was just like all of a sudden no business. It was
Hmm.
very weird.
Hmm.
um, and I think that's what other people were experiencing as well, but I'm not sure. And when I say other people, I mean other video production
Right.
houses in town and freelancers was kind of the vibe. And I think it was because of the election. But so then I had been dabbling in this idea of like, well, maybe this is like the sign for me to just go back doing mental health because I had been working on a yoga therapy certification
Hmm.
and was still doing supervision with a group working on like burnout. So burnout and compassion fatigue has always been something I've been very interested in. I think partially because I experienced it and I see a lot of good people burn out of fields that they're in because of burnout and they just walk away. And so I was
Yeah.
still doing some of that supervision and things like that. And so I even started sort of the process, but um, it just wasn't the right time for me to do that because I had a lot of fear. And then in the meantime, was still networking. And then that's when I got asked to go over to produce for Blend Marketing in town.
Hmm.
And so I think I got hired by them in March. So the layoff was like 3 months or so. And started doing producing over there. And that was really fun. And we got to do some really fun shoots, do different types of producing as well, where
Hmm.
we had one of my more memorable shoots was we had Nate Stevens on a shoot with us down in Illinois. I think it was in Illinois and Kentucky. And I rearranged the schedule because his wife was due to give birth at any moment. And so part of him, like he was like, this is happening. So I'm wondering if we can like front load Kentucky. I think it was Kentucky and then end with Illinois. And I said, yes. And I get a call, the producer is like, I'm in the hotel room. It's 2 a.m.
Oh
or 1
no.
a.m. We have a shoot the next day. And he's like she went into labor. You got to get me back home. My father-in-law, it will pick us up at like the border. So
Oh my
Alex
gosh.
and I in the car drive him up to Janesville. I don't remember. It's all a blur.
Oh my
Drop
gosh.
him off. He gets to the hospital in time to see his son born. And then Alex and I drive back. And then the next day, this is an example of like, well, now we're down a full crew member. So then Derek had to like, and everyone does an amazing job, like set everything up, shoot everything, light it, and still get it all done and like get what we need. And that's producing. Like,
Yeah, in a nutshell.
in a nutshell, it's like what is happening, and like, and being able to have the flexibility, and then too of like, yeah, so I'm going to rearrange the schedule. It worked out well, and he wasn't in Kentucky when she went into labor. Like he was just like just south of the border.
Nice.
So that happened, and then some other things that happened at Blend for me was going back to producing and account managing is that Blend has a client called Sandstone Care. And so they're drug and alcohol treatment center for teens and young adults. And so we did some good video work for them. And there was, again, an opportunity for an account manager. And I had learned what that is. And it's basically producing, but it's for things. So it's like website updates, SEO, Google ads, like photography, it's that whole thing, and it's making sure all the work gets done for the client. And so I, again, had kind of seen with video production, like ebbing and flowing, that maybe some more stability, safety would come with doing account managing and still doing some producing.
Sure.
So that's what I did. And so I became the account manager over there for a handful of clients. That was really fun, and continue to do that today. I work part-time for Blend now, just managing that account. And I think I started that back in September. So I've been doing that. And because of all of so Blend does a ton of tourism work. And so when the pandemic hit, all of like the opportunities for us to do photo, video just went right out the window, because we work with like smaller, like family-owned tourism companies who like everything shut down.
Yeah.
And so that was obviously not the reason for doing a lot of photo video. And so then I was able to just continue to focus with account management. And then in the meantime, was starting to slowly build my business, where I finally in 2019, I think this is what I want to do long-term, is go into private practice. And so I started like a year ago today. I think I had 3 clients. So I was working full time. And then at night would just go see a handful of clients or see them on Saturdays. And then started the process of getting credentialed with insurance. And then that's like a snowball. Like you get on one, and then you get on another and another and another. And then mental health business is good, because the pandemic is causing a lot of stress and anxiety and a lot of things. So it's unfortunate, but it was like as the pandemic has gotten worse. So
I was going to say there's probably a lot of people that are looking for therapy.
Yes, there are. And I mean, yes. And I think it's reducing the stigma, and silver lining. One of the interests, we don't have to get too far off topic, but insurance companies have for a long time been maybe resistance to doing telehealth. It's like, it's office based. That's what you need to do. And they were able to, they had to, out of necessity, approve telehealth. And what our hope is, I think, is this is really working well for people. It's really convenient. You don't have to get in the car. You don't have to drive anywhere. People who live in rural areas where there isn't mental health services now can access therapists online. And so I'm hopeful that as things open up again, that telehealth will still continue to be such a good vehicle for mental health services.
Yeah, I mean,
I imagine too that, you mentioned stigma, and there shouldn't be. I'm always trying to encourage people that I know about, you need to take care of yourself, and mental is another part of that.
Yep.
And hopefully, maybe the telehealth and the long distance helps with if you had reservations about going, and part of that is you may be concerned about letting family and friends know, and just the act of going somewhere physically, and my car is sitting in this parking lot of this clinic that is a mental health,
Yes.
all those things, hopefully this opens the door a little bit and takes the walls down to I can just sign in and talk to somebody, and we can start on this journey.
Exactly. And I think it's the feedback that a lot of my clients have said has been exactly that, just the convenience of it. So if you whether you have a family or you're working from home and you can just be like in your sweats, like 11 o'clock, I have my client, they can just jump online,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly the privacy that's afforded. And then too, thinking about the pandemic, like the populations I like to see is a lot of anxiety, depression. Well, if you're anxious about getting COVID, you may be less likely to go seek services.
Mm-hmm.
Than knowing you can be in your home, your therapist online, and then really getting help, being able to get the help that you need
Mm-hmm.
for that.
And
So,
with that, like what about therapy, because obviously like it takes a huge empathetic response to be able to care and then help,
mhm.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like, and you got us into the Enneagram, which I know you love, and I think it's fantastic.
Mhm.
It helps you understand. For those who don't know, the Enneagram, you can go online, do this test where you answer just a bunch of questions honestly, and then it says, here's, your
Yep.
strengths and here's your weaknesses. And
Yep.
it's a good one because it's very detail oriented. Um,
Yes.
but, you know, myself, I think I'm a challenger number
Mm-hmm.
one, or
Eight.
enthusiast. I'm a
You're
enthusiast and
the
a challenger, and I can't remember
challenge.
which one is first, but they're both like I get so hot and ready to go, and I'm like, let's do it, let's go, and forget to think about some things. And a challenger also too. Uh, you can talk more about a challenger. You would know better all these all the specifics, but I challenge people, and I'm like, just buck up,
Yeah.
deal with it, right? And so it's very helpful because it also helps me understand my weaknesses in interactions so that I can better approach something. And if I'm like, yeah, I don't like that a lot, okay, let me think about this. Let me make sure that I communicate this in a good way, in a positive way that makes the other person not feel terrible and helps us, get further to something better. So thinking
Yep.
about therapy, you obviously have to be super empathetic. You have to
Yep.
care a lot, and then
Hmm.
you just have to have so much extra emotional energy to be able to help. Like how do you do it?
I think that was for me, knowing that I had to be true. This is where I finally just was like, I'm going into private practice and I'm going to do yoga therapy and mental health. I'm going to combine the best of talk therapy with body-based interventions. And if it doesn't work, I can do something else, because clearly I've done lots of other things. And I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. And so
Hmm.
when you see someone who has 8 million titles, they might be a 7, especially if they're very different things. Now, if it's similar things, then they might be an achiever. But that's like, why would she go to producing, to mental health? She's a 7. 7s have to try on a lot of things before they find out what they really like to
Mm.
do, and can be good at a lot of things very quickly. But I decided, I was like, I have to do body-based interventions, and really thinking about my own experience with anxiety and depression from time to time. What I realized was that, it's like, my yoga practice has really helped my mental health, and doing a lot of movement has really helped my mental health. And sometimes talking about what we're anxious about, just we get into like a spiral of like, well, now I'm talking about how anxious I feel. I feel more anxious. I'm trying to talk myself out of being anxious, and I'm really not doing a good job of that. And so now this just reinforces the negative feelings I have
Hmm.
about myself, versus what if we got up and did a brief movement, because we have to complete the stress cycle. And a good book I recommend that came out this past year was Burnout by I think they're Nagoski sisters. And Brene Brown did a podcast, and I can throw the podcast in the link, but they talk about, this is going to blow your minds, that like emotions and feelings have a beginning, middle, and end. And a lot of
Mm.
times we experience the beginning of an emotion and a middle, but we never complete it. And that might be because it's inappropriate to scream and yell at somebody. It might be
Hmm.
because we don't have an opportunity necessarily to run away or fight, which is our fight flight response kicking in, because those two things are so connected. And so then what do you do with that emotion? Well, we stuff it down. And then but then if we're ruminating about that all day, it's like, I need to go for a walk. It's like, I need to go for a walk or
Hmm.
vent to somebody, things like that. Um, and so that I do nervous system work with people with polyvagal theory, which is all about our fight, flight, freeze response. And then I use a lot of the Enneagram and bring that in, and do movement. And so being able to do that has helped sustain my practice. I love it. And I love helping people. And then I have also people who are like, this is the type of therapy I want to do, which is really nice because people who come for therapy should really get the type of therapy that they want.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just don't, like, and it's all within a range. I have some folks we do a lot more talk therapy, and I have other clients I work with who it's more yoga therapy. So I really tailor it. But I mean, almost everybody gets Enneagram work and polyvagal theory.
Yeah,
So
I'm super fascinated too. I do yoga, so I've started working out. I've worked out 6 days a week for about 2 years now. Just acknowledging things like you're talking about, how tied together your mental and physical nature are, and certainly is working out and feeling better, and that helping my mental state. Um, and yoga is certainly a part of it in terms of just my body not hurting as well. And I've found that that is so critical for me. And so I'm curious, like, is this? And I know John had another comment too, and I don't want to take it. If you have something about what she just said, I'm trying to take it in a different direction. I apologize.
No, no, I mean it's related. I was just gonna say I feel like I should be taking notes. But
Yeah.
I love this stuff, and um, you know, maybe we'll go there later in this discussion. We talked a little bit for, at times about the connectedness between your skills in that area and then managing a team or working with clients. And
yes,
then, you kind of have to like fight yourself not to be diagnosing them like, oh, it seems, but it kind of helps that, even internally to just be like, oh, it seems like there might be a little bit of this there. Maybe this is how we can work with this person,
mm-hmm.
or help them, even though you may not be able to treat them.
Right,
um,
yeah.
anyway, that's all I was going to say.
Sure.
So go on.
What I think about, Ryan, what you said, and is Alex, I like to explain this. I don't think I have an empty glass in my room, but so going to the stress response. Okay, so we experience stressors every day. Um, and so we also have what I call a window of tolerance for how much we can sort of, I call it the green zone, stay in a space where we're fairly well regulated emotionally, and experience stress. And so when COVID hit, all of our window of tolerances, I would say for most of us, got smaller because
Mm.
things were changing and more, and
Hmm.
which now means that there were certain things we could tolerate before we're having a harder time. There might be a few introverts out there who are like, yes, window of tolerance got nice and big, right? Because they didn't have to deal with as many people, which is amazing. Um, and so, but I think about our day as if my LaCroix, at the start of my day is full of this much stress. And now as I've gone through my day, and I mean, just think about your production shoots, there can
Hmm.
be very, very stressful long days. It's like, oh, we lost location. Now I got to feel stress. Oh, this PA is irritating me. Oh God, filling, right? And now it's like, well, that's okay because by the end of the day, I'm going to be able to work out. But if we're not able to necessarily discharge those things in the moment, so it fills up to the top, right? And now you're like, oh, I get to go work out, but maybe you only pour out half that stress. So then you
Hmm.
show up the next day and the cup is already half full. And so what I try to work with clients on is what are the little moments where you can like leave a meeting, like we talk about like Zoom meetings. I'm like, can you turn your Zoom meeting off, stand up and do jumping jacks, and then stand
Hmm.
on one foot to work through what's bothering you, right? Or we'll do figure eight work. Like this is acceptable. What are different things? I've got like my little theraputty that I use sometimes, like where I can do find
Hmm.
motor skills to help regulate, to discharge the energy which is basically our response to
Hmm.
stress. And so working out, what you found for yourself, Ryan, is that yes, working out 6 days a week is totally helping because you're pouring out your stress. You're pouring it out. You're pouring it out. You're pouring it out.
And the other thing you're talking about there that I probably need to investigate more is like throughout the day, because
Right.
I'll work out at 5 a.m. And I was
Mhm.
driving in today and the kids were fighting and I was dealing with it. And I'm like, why can't I have this kind of perspective at 5 o'clock?
Right.
And it's
Mhm.
just like you're saying, the stresses of the days. So I'm definitely, I got to think about and maybe investigate some of that, like just step away, go do something
Definitely.
physical, because I'm not doing anything physical during the day. I mean, that's why I work so hard in the morning, but step away, because I know like when I come home, I'm like, I need my brain to not be so compressed so that I can
Right.
deal with things, just leave me
Right.
alone for 10 minutes.
Yeah. And so that's the next thing I'd like to say is, so we have like our fight flight response, right? And so that's what I call our I can phase. And that's like going to work. It's like you're still online, you're still engaging with people, but it's like you might be a little bit sweaty, you're feeling a little activated. Go through your day and that glass is filling up. And then we also need to talk about our freeze response. So the freeze response then is what we call our emergency state. And so sometimes that means, I think for a lot of people, that at the end of the day or at the end of a week, you're like, I don't want to do anything but zone out on my phone for 2 hours and not speak to a soul and decline calls. And like, and that to me is like, that is our freeze response. And then it's being able to do that for a period of time and then get your body back on, like your mind and your body back online to be present. And so none of those stages are wrong or bad. But what we want is this like smooth sailing to go on and to not get stuck. And so where I work with a lot of clients,
Ah,
myself included, is like if you're in fight flight all the time and it's maybe like this, like, but it's like low level. I'm always worried. I'm always anxious. I'm not in green. How can I help you find green? Or if it's a response of like, I'm just in my blue all the time, which is more of the freeze response, or like that's where depression or hopelessness or feelings of numb or being dissociated can be. It's like, okay, how do we bring you back in those phases? And so I've talked more with, just thinking about what is mindful dissociation. Like mindful dissociation is like, yeah, I'm going to do 10 minutes on my phone, but I'm going to try not let this go for 4 hours.
mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Especially if you have, like, both of you have children, so it's like probably not super helpful for you to be like going out for 3 hours at the end of a day
Right,
when
right.
your wives and children need you.
Well, and there's a lot of, body science behind that stuff too, because like you, we're seeking, maybe dopamine or
Yep,
something. I mean, maybe that would be
that is one of them.
more,
Yep,
more of a experience, but um, basically we run into the thing like a kid with like candy is like there's a certain amount of time while it's like giving you what you want, but then like I don't know how you would define this, better than me in your terms, but like you're seeking something, you've spent 2 hours zoning out, you're not quite there, you haven't satisfied whatever it was that was lacking. So you try 2 more hours, and at the end of 4 hours, it's not there. And now
yeah,
other things are starting to collide with your mind, like now I'm not sleeping. Now I'm like, I've ignored all the chores. There's more stress happening.
yeah,
And you just get in this,
um, yeah.
yeah.
That's it. And then it's like, then we get stuck. And it's interesting too, because it's never like, we don't do these things to punish people. We don't do these things to, because it's just like, it's a combination of nature, nurture, the environment we're in, things like that. Like something I always explain to clients is like, it's hard to be in green if the environment you're in isn't safe. If you don't feel safe, your nervous system's going to be alerting you to danger. And so then, yeah, you're not going to be like, in this like green zone necessarily if you don't feel safe. Some of those things are prerequisites, but it's like we continue to seek sometimes instead of finding that relief, but we get there's like sevens, for example. So I go back to my Enneagram stuff, is like I need to stay busy because I'm trying to more manage my anxiety, but really I need to be doing the opposite of that. So I have to find times where that feels good and safe to do, if that makes sense, which has always been yoga and exercise for me, always.
Yeah. And isn't that weird too? And hopefully everyone, I don't know, whoever's live, please do ask questions below. And if you can donate for this free mental health session, please do go ahead and donate. um, but I mean, I feel like that's my life too. Like, okay, I'm feeling stressed out. I'm gonna go and try and get something else done. As opposed to, like you said, maybe seeing that emotion to the completion, or
Right.
seeing, that feeling to where it goes, and working with it. And every time I get like a moment or take some time, it's always rewarding. You know, I do. I'm calling them, and this probably exists somewhere, but I'm calling them dad ventures, a
Mhm.
dad adventure. So taking each of my kids, I just start at the top, go to the bottom, start at the top, go to the bottom. Try to do at least one a year with everybody. But we do something that we haven't done before, hang out, and then go get some food and eat, and we can talk and hang out. It's always so stressful because in my mind, and maybe this is the I don't know. I forget kind of all my specifics on the Enneagram, but like I want to be doing good things and great things all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to be doing stuff for my family. This is also good for me. However, it's not fixing the door or it's
Right.
not doing something with the business. And so while it might not be, what's the term, like immediately pertinent, it's
Mhm.
so fundamentally necessary. And I went and I took my 3-year-old and we painted pottery for a couple hours and went and got some Culvers. And it was amazing. And just any anxiety over anything just melted away. Doing this other thing, this calm thing, this peaceful thing, this artistic thing, and we know this, and that's maybe the worst part of it. Like I know this, we know
Yeah.
this, and yet we don't seek those things all the time.
Right.
Uh,
Something that I've discussed a lot goes into something you mentioned, which is what we define as productivity and laziness and productivity, and what it means if I quote haven't gotten anything done today.
Mm-hmm.
What are the shoulds and expectations that we have in our head that are creating suffering? And so what you bring up is such a good example, right? Of your 3-year-old is a perfect example of like whatever is going on in front of her, him is like literally in the moment, right? It's this beautiful example of being in your green zone, of like being present, compassionate, joyful, mindful, and being able to set all the other stuff aside, right, and really being there. And that was that experience. And then I think of like if this 8 type that you speak of is more like 8s want to dominate their environment to feel in control. 8s don't like to feel weakness. 8s struggle with vulnerability. So I'd be like, Ryan, you should dip your toe into vulnerability.
One
like
hundo p.
like that won't be too scary. It's going to be scary at first, but so then too, like for you to recognize that like this is what she wants to do and I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to say things like, well, this is silly or foolish or dumb, or isn't like what I want to do, or like is she learning enough, or is this a learning, it's like, let's just throw that away and let's just have fun for the sake of having fun, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. Keep free, suck, and I think there's some of that too, of like, well, this has to be the ones are I love working with all the types, but one of the interesting types is the reformer. And one of the things that is encouraged for ones is to do an activity just for fun, which for a full one is like, oh, why would I ever
Oh
do
yeah.
that? And a 7 was like, yes, everything we do is for fun. Like, why wouldn't we, or 6s struggle with making mistakes. And so they might be, if they feel like there's going to be like I might fail at something, they might not try something new, versus like other types are like, bring it on. Like, let's try it. Who cares? So it's working within each of those types, feeling our feelings. It's
yeah.
like,
Well, and I think, the value on a lot of this is like, um, in pursuit of, I guess, like self mastery. That's a little bit of a stronger phrase than I was looking for, but is just sort of like acknowledging the cool thing about tests like the Enneagram, Working Genius, or whatever one people have is that they call you to like try to look at yourself from the outside and acknowledge some of the things and then say, well, how should I work on those?
yes.
And for me, like some of the things um, that I've worked on over the years is like I've never been a morning person, but I've kind of like worked through this mental idea of like, well, I don't want to be defined by
Mhm.
something like that. So I was actually joking with Scott recently because he sent the link to like retake the Enneagram or whatever because it's interesting to do a little bit later. And I was joking with him. I was like, "Look, I've lost my identity because I my like a lot of things flattened out from the last time I took the test. Still got a lot of peacemaker in there, but
Oh,
anyway, um, yeah, which that goes on another tangent. I was going to make some jokes about growing up in a family that has a lot of Minnesota nice, and thinking about the cup and the whatever. Basically, there's no finality of the emotion until the cup has reached the very top, and then there's been a lot that's been there.
uh-huh.
Anyway, that's a tangent. But just saying like, well, I don't want to be defined by this attribute. Like, yeah, I may have natural strengths, but I don't, this doesn't need to be all about who I am. Like these things can change if I work on them in these ways.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, but a thing that they almost all require is probably humility to
Mhm.
say, gotta look at, and let's just see if I can work on this. And it's working on getting outside of comfort zones and stuff. I mean, it's so fascinating and it's so fun to talk about because I think it just applies to everything.
It
It's
does.
like you function in your family, in your marriage, in your friendships, in your businesses, you um, need to work on these things.
It's interesting too because I've had if someone came and they're like, I took the Enneagram, I think it's BS, and I just don't even want to work in it, I'd be like, that's totally fine. And what's been funny is I've had a few who are like, who they're questioning it, which is literally their type then. And so then they're like, I don't know. And I was like, what's your type? 6. I'm like, you mean the loyalist / questioner? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, giving
Yeah.
yourself away a little bit, but it's okay, like if it doesn't resonate, because and I always say to clients, like, it doesn't have to reduce you to this one piece, but like
Yeah.
also to find a way to understand why we do the things we do. If we're stuck in this, like, why do I do these behaviors? Like, why does this person make me so mad? And it's like, well, let's talk about your type. And then
Hmm.
like, oh, what might they be? Oh, or
Yeah.
like parents and children. It's like, you might have a dreamer child. And so like, Ryan, if you have a dreamer and you're an 8, you're like, just put your pants on. And they're like, no, daddy, I'm drawing clouds. Like, it's like that. She or he might be a 4. Like, you then find what I like the Enneagram about too is you find compassion for the other types. Like, even for me as a therapist, I'm like, oh, okay. It sort of
Hmm.
grounds me in understanding because the 8, and I can send you a link to a book, but like the 8 the Enneagram can be very grounded in spirituality as well. And so what they'll say sometimes is every type is a face of God. And I've
Mm.
actually read a really good book about some brilliant people wrote the Enneagram along with like verses from the Bible and like really connecting. And I'm like, holy, this is amazing,
Oh, that
right? So
sounds
like
awesome.
choose love, like unconditional love is the 2.
Hmm.
And like 7s are joyful, and like the 8s bring leadership, and the 9s are the peacemaker. And like, so if you think about that, like those are the faces of human beings,
Hmm.
and we all have all types in us. And so it helps us, I think, with humility and patience and understanding and compassion.
I love all of that too, and especially what you were talking about. Uh, I'm paraphrasing, but it doesn't define us. It helps us be introspective or retrospective, or like you look in the mirror and you see yourself and you make choices based on how you see yourself. Your friends, your spouse, your family tells you
Mm-hmm.
things about yourself, and you make choices based on that. And like the Enneagram is just one of those maybe more finely tuned tools that can provide more information so you can understand that stuff, and then you can choose to be like, I think this is BS, get out of
Right.
here. Which I think if that's like a 6, like if you're a super strong 6, that should be in the Enneagram like response, like you're probably gonna think this is bullshit.
Right.
I, there's a comedian Joe Zimmerman who's talking about being an Aquarius and I think it's that Scorpio, being a Scorpio, and
Yeah.
then he's like, he's on a date with somebody, and he's like, "Yeah, I always just tell people I'm a Libra or what one's near that? I don't know. Um, and then eventually she finds out. She's like, "What? Yeah, I thought you said you were a Libra or whatever." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, and she's like, "But you're a Scorpio," and he's like, basically, it's just this joke about how it's like the most Scorpio thing to do to like lie about what you are. Um, yeah. Anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
That's exact. It is. And fours, we even talked about a four, but like a four is an individualist. So sometimes you get the fours who are like, you can't put me in a box. And I'm like, what's your type? Four. I'm like, okay, like there it is. I'm so sorry.
I just
Like,
put you in the 4 box.
I'm really sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, I think for us, like, what we've seen the best is not like, I'm so good at, like, where it fails is like, oh, I'm this, so you should listen to me because of this.
Yeah.
It's the other side of like, okay, yeah, I am a challenger. I do, not speak in a way that is always great, and you can see those like, and I forget the terminology again, but like the weaknesses of each of the
Yeah.
numbers, like immediately when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, you definitely kind of see that, and it helps you because you can work on it. And
Right.
I love too. I'd love to get that book
Sure.
because I do a lot of John too. We do a lot of spiritual reading, a lot of study of our faith, and like the other day, I read from Saint John Chrysostom, who says, essentially bearing iniquities silently.
Mhm.
Whereas, like at my core, if somebody says something wrong, I don't even have an emotional response. I'm like, oh, by the way, that was wrong, and here's why that's wrong, and like that, that's super offensive.
Brian, I have to read something from my little Enneagram because I was just reviewing the 8 type. This is so funny. Like, here we go. Ready? So personal growth for 8s. Resist dismissing or invalidating the other's experience or views.
Yeah. And,
It's difficult to 8s, but learn to yield to others at least occasionally. Often little is really at stake, and you can allow others to have their way without fear of sacrificing your power or your real needs. The desire to dominate everyone all the time is a sign that your ego is beginning to inflate, a
yeah.
danger signal that more serious conflicts with others are inevitable.
Yeah. I mean, the best part of that too is like, and I don't remember if you saw these, but like I think Scott is an 8 as well, and so like we'll butt heads on those things, like do it this way. Well, I want to do it this way. Well, I think this is better, and like neither of us are, intentionally discounting somebody else's way of doing something, but again, and is an 8 an achiever? Is that what it is?
3.
Or 3? What's the
Achiever.
8?
The 8 is
Challenger.
the challenger.
Okay, so the challenger, like we also challenge ourselves. We're like just kind
Right.
of buck up and just do it. And
Right.
so yeah, it's been fun to kind of like, and John is just very different as well, and often the peacemaker. But then when the
Yep.
peacemaker's cup gets filled, he's like, yeah, enough. We're like, whoa, where did this come from?
Where did that come from? Right.
well, so I had another thought recently about like, okay, Peacemaker is again, it's flattened out a bit. It's evened out, and I think that's something we talked about is like that's a bit of like maturity, like that really, as you mature, like you would bring into balance some of those other things so that you're not just like only an enthusiast who is just, I just
20.
never go to work. I just go to
Yep.
amusement parks all day and and drink on the ride.
Yep.
Um, uh, but I was thinking about like, well, Peacemaker, like that's not the same, shouldn't be the same as pacifist. Like, like, and this is another friend of mine, older, wiser friend of mine who's in my small group who
Is
talks
this
about like
John Campbell?
it is. He talks
He's
about
the best.
the difference between a ceasefire and peace, and that a ceasefire isn't true peace. It's just that you've just agreed, verbally or non-verbally, to just stop
Yeah.
shooting at each other, stop, whatever. And sometimes that's valuable because sometimes you just need to get through the next bit of life. And there's a lot of families who just live in ceasefire. But then he talks about peace, which is like an active thing that takes a lot of work, is very hard. So like work toward bringing peace into. So I was thinking about that. Like, oh, that would be a goal to make more positive out of like peacemaking, which would be like active engagement in it, which sometimes feels like the opposite. It
Yeah,
feels like the confrontation that I don't really want to have. But
exactly.
yeah.
It can be necessary because so the 9 actually sits in the anger triad with the 8. We just learned that 8s have no problem expressing their anger, and they're pretty quick. They say it, they get over it. The 9s, they're it's almost like the shadow. They're like, I can never show anger, and I don't want to rock the boat internally or externally. And so then I encourage 9s to be able to speak up and rock the boat from time to time so that you don't have the giant explosion at the end,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then in the 9s too, it's like they see both sides because they're also called the mediator because they see both sides really well.
And I've looked at the value, like we've talked about this some, is like what value, what good did it do if the kids were annoying me and I held off, for this long, but then blew up? Like
Sure.
it had no value because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't even know that I was working on something. They didn't know that I was overcoming something internally. They're just going along, and I was not saying something, and then finally I did, and it was way over the top. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, just again, like reflecting on these things, looking back at yourself, and trying to say like, how can I be better at, whether it's my job, my relationships, my life. It's so awesome what you do. I mean, and that I was actually really interested about. Um, I wanted to hear a little bit more about this idea of compassion fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That sounds really interesting. Is like I always used to tell Amanda, I don't know how you can work as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Like I go to work, if I mess everything up royally, the
Mm-hmm.
worst thing that happens is somebody doesn't get their video today.
Right.
They've got to wait till next week. What, like there's some things like that. Of like if you mess up, somebody dies.
Right. Yeah.
Or like in your case, like, so the level of the weight on your shoulders, and maybe the compassion that you have to have,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep having and not have off days.
Yeah.
That's an interesting challenge.
Yes, the thing to know, the difference between burnout and compassion fatigue, very simply, is if you are burned out, you go on vacation, and then when you get back, you feel great and you're ready to do your job. Compassion fatigue is where you go on vacation and you come back and you're dreading going back to your job, and you start feeling apathy to clients, and you realize that like spirit, you start feeling really hopeless, and maybe that you're not being helpful or effective. And so it's really important then, and I learned this maybe brings the whole conversation full circle, is what I really learned about myself was my high level of empathy and understanding. And it's funny, I'm teaching back at Edgewood, and I told the students last week, I'm like, if you're here to save people, you will burn out of this field because you
Mm.
can't save people. You have to hold space for people to share their stories. You have to make them feel safe and comfortable, but they're the ones that really do the work, and you're there to help them along the way. But sometimes you take that responsibility off of your shoulders, and then that's all the work we have to do. One, about who are we and what is our role. And then two, paying attention to, last night I had a good day. I'm really lucky. I have incredible clients. And still at the end of my day, my cup was pretty full. And I went downstairs and I lifted weights for a half hour, and then I felt great.
Mm.
And those were things, a lot of the strategies that I've taught my clients are strategies I do myself to prevent those things from happening. And like getting a handle on my schedule and like saying no and being like, I'm full, like I can't take on any more clients, and having better boundaries. And I feel really fortunate that I'm in a position to have started my own practice. So I'm being allowed to do the things and work with clients the way that I really want to, which has provided a great deal of 7s don't like feeling like they're losing their freedom. And so for me to be able to really do yoga therapy as part of my practice helps me a lot with that.
Another another tie-in I was thinking of is that all these like character traits and quirks we were talking about are what make for interesting characters though then in film. And I don't know if you're still doing it, but you were doing a your analysis on characters from popular shows and movies, which was awesome, amazing. I loved it. Um, yeah, are you still doing it, or or maybe you want to talk about some of your favorite things there and the tie-in there?
So what's really funny is that I emailed my colleague Madeline, who I used to do that podcast with, and I emailed her, and she got back to me right before us doing this show, and she's like, "I'd absolutely love to do podcasting again." And we've had some colleagues who really, I think, would love us to do bring back Couch of Characters. And then apparently she'd gotten a message from someone who listened to one of the shows. And so there actually might be a resurrection of Couch of Characters. So I think that would be really fun. And then the other podcast I started, um, that then because of the pandemic and a variety of other things, is the Ordinary Lives of Extraordinary Women, where amongst us walk amazing women with these incredible stories, and they're just like living ordinary lives. And so the thing creating more space for this year is bachelor podcasting. Actually, TC really wants, I told TC, he's like, what would it take? And I'm like, I need a producer. I can't do it all. Like, I can't I can't edit it. I don't have time to set it music, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I can even get the people and get my little Yeti and record it, but then I need to hand it to someone and then they do it and get out into the universe for me. And so I think those are the two realms. I'm currently watching Ray Donovan. You guys watch Ray Donovan?
No.
Oh, it's really good. It's on Showtime, so I think you can get an add-on through Amazon. But
Okay.
what's fun is he the Enneagram, he hates his environment, and so he's a fixer in Los Angeles. You love LA. It was filmed in LA, and it's just wonderful. So it's got a little Sopranos vibe to it, but yeah, that's. I don't know why I just said that. It's my seven brain. I just going off into tangent land, but podcasting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why. So podcast. I would probably bring Ray Donovan would be, and his family would be a family I'd podcast with Madeline about. So try to bring back more of the creativity back in my life.
What kind of show is that? Is that a like documentary?
No, it's a fictional show.
Oh, okay.
There's like 8 seasons of
Oh
it.
my gosh, wow.
I know. Yeah.
Amanda and I just watched The Queen's Gambit,
Yes.
um, which I mean, there's all kinds of fun psychology things. They're more outside the realm of kind of the usual, I guess. But yeah, she was loving it. Um, Super strong character, and super strong intellectual character too, and just kind of a fun. I We were talking a lot about how like this is a really interesting space where like there's really like no leg up that one gender has over the other. Like this is like an intellectual space where, you know, whatever people. She's a. If anyone hasn't watched it and they're watching this podcast, she's a master chess player. Um, Grew up in an orphanage. It's a fictional thing, but it's loosely based on some real life characters. I think.
I think that shows such a good example too of high functioning addiction along with trauma, because the addiction started in the orphanage, I think after a parent died, I believe. We started it, we haven't finished it. But it's a fantastic example of high functioning addiction and resilience too. So
Yeah.
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 Well, it is about 1:10. I'm sorry, my camera is also blown up too, so you guys keep losing me. I'm like slow motion on screen. Here, let me do this. Uh, three up. Oh yeah, I can come over. know. I'm still not here. Anyway,
You're
what we'll
in
do,
there
we'll
somewhere.
we'll start two truths and a lie. You can still hear me.
Okay. Yes.
Um, it's funny too. I have like I feel like we should schedule Julia Smith number two, number three, number four, because we just touched a little bit on mental health and like your
Yeah.
kind of that new area or that bigger area of your life right now. But I have more questions too about like production and creative
Yeah.
things you're doing. So at the end of this, we'll let you pitch some stuff.
Okay.
Um, but we'll definitely have to get you back on here. So let's do true truths and a lie.
Okay.
And we'll save you for last if you need a minute. We'll start with John while I'm futzing with a camera. Uh, and he can go first.
Yeah. I I started this with somebody else, and I think I'll keep it going. I make the theme tied to the guest. So there'll be three items. Number one, I have never dyed my hair any other color.
Hmm.
Number two, I once passed out during a hot yoga class. Number three, there's a little bit of a pet cemetery forming in our backyard. There are two rats and one dog buried back there.
That's
Those are
fantastic.
those are my.
So
Uh,
I think the lie is that you have colored your hair a different color, but that you have indeed passed out in a hot yoga class. And you do have pets buried in your backyard. So that's what I think the lie is.
Yeah. So I think the pet cemetery, I think that's for reals. I think
Mm.
you're definitely got some pets back there. Let's see. This might work now. I'm back. Other people can see me, but you guys can't. Sorry. Um, Pet cemetery, and then dyed your hair. And what was the third one? Give me that again.
I once passed out in a hot yoga class.
Hot yoga. Um, I'm gonna say the hot yoga. I don't think you've done hot yoga before. I know.
Oh,
I feel like Andrew went to it once. We talked about it once. I'd be very impressed if you did do it though. But I'm gonna go with that. And which one did you pick, Julia? Was it the
hair
hair?
dye.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. What is it?
All right. Well, once again, Ryan has sniffed it out. I have, I have not done hot yoga.
Oh,
Uh, I make fun of it a lot. I'm sure it's great for some people. I I sweat when I'm like thinking hard about something. I do not want to be any warmer than I currently am.
That's amazing.
um, I have never dyed my hair
mm,
any other color. I don't. It just didn't come up. You know, wasn't really into that in high school when everyone was getting frosted tips. Didn't do it. Just haven't done it. And then, yes, I've got two rats. They were the pets of Amanda's sister when she lived here. And then they're up by a nice tree in the backyard. And then Wally has a nice little stone backyard along the path.
aw.
Yep.
All right. So I got a point. All right. I'll go
Mm,
next. We'll save you for last, Julia.
okay.
I had a list of other ones, but I'm gonna go with this. Um, I've dyed my hair several different colors.
Mm,
I've passed out uh, while lifting or during a lifting session. Um, and let's see, what would a lie be? Um, Also at home, I'm not watching, but John's watching, so you should definitely guess at home. I think you're watching, John. I had to close everything because my computer's blowing up. John's watching at home though, so put your guesses in. Um, and then, man, I wasn't prepared for this one. Um, I hate Subway because of a shoot that we were on, Julia, you were on, and we got Subway.
Oh, you
I,
know,
so I think that story about Subway is true because I feel like then we stopped getting Subway. But then, so I don't think you've passed out, but I bet you have colored your hair. Go all in on that.
and he's tricky. He
Yep.
see, he's using similar things to my story,
Well,
and then it just makes me like have to.
John, he said was, and now I have to come up with a lie. And then he talked about Subway. So maybe that's like the obvious answer is the Subway story is actually the lie.
No, the subway story is true. You don't get that. Everybody got sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone got sick on Subway on whatever shoot that was. I don't remember.
Yeah. No, I never got it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, let's see. I'm not sure about working out. I guess he could have passed out. He almost made me pass out one time when I was trying to work out with him. Um, he's like, "Oh yeah, here, use these. These will be good for that exercise. This is what I use." Like, huh? I don't work out at all, and now I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
um, let's see. I think the lie is he said multiple colors.
Mm.
I've seen the frosted tips picture, but I'm not sure that any other colors have been in the hair.
All right. Let's see. Julia, you guessed the passing out,
Correct.
and John, you guessed the hair. The lie is I've never passed out while
Oh boy.
lifting. I certainly like I'm working on I feel like I'm working on blood flow because like sometimes when I sit up or I stand up from the ground, I'll get real lightheaded. So I've been trying to work on flexibility and things just to make sure that doesn't happen. So I've never actually passed out, but definitely been doing things and stand up, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit back down for a second. Give me a
Yep.
moment. Okay. So it's kind of close to the truth. It's not the truth though. I have bleached my hair a lot in high school. I also dyed it black in high school,
Ooh.
Ah.
um, and have done other crazy things with it through the years. So that is also a truth. And then of course the sandwiches. Yeah, I think I think Jordan maybe wasn't feeling great after
Yeah.
those sandwiches too. And it was like tied to the boat trip,
It
but
was.
That's what it was.
I think like many of us like I when we had it at Lambeau,
Mm-hmm.
like afterwards I was like, oh, I feel so terrible. And my kids thought that a sub sandwich was Subway, and they're like, we love Subway. I'm like, no, you love subs,
Right.
not Subway. Subway's the worst.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The
get that
boat
out of
trip
there.
yeah, that was the one. That was the instance. And
Poor
no one was I, that's a great story. By
would be a good one to bring on with Jordan, just between that and Lambo. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All
I
right.
was lost the drone. The
It's
poor
true.
drone.
And I was almost going to go in there. I was like ready to take off my clothes and jump in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
boat was drifting off.
Yep.
Yeah.
We lost
Yep.
it. Good times.
Good time.
All right. You're up.
So I was thinking about this, and so I realized that I think I've been to Los Angeles 3 times. So that means I've been to LAX 3 times. And so the first time I went to Los Angeles, here's the first one. I saw the actor Ryan Gosling, standing in line to leave, and he is much shorter than, like, you know how actors look normal size, and he's not normal size. He's like
Sure.
my size.
Like
But he had
Tom
a
Cruise is like this tall.
Yeah, he's like tiny. And so he had a cowboy hat on and a big like belt buckle, and he was beautiful. So that's the first one. The
Fact check
second,
true. Ryan Gosling is beautiful.
Ryan, beautiful. The second one was LAX. I was there for a wedding, and I saw Florence Henderson in baggage claim with her bag walking through, and I was like, "It's Mrs. Brady." It was very, very exciting.
These are
And then
good. These are really good, Julia.
And then the third one was in LA again for the 48 big showing. And so there I saw Maria Shriver, who is, I think was married to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and she is like, and a Kennedy, right? Like she's a goddess among people. And I saw her at the airport and was in awe and sort of shocked that she would be like in an airport, to be honest, and not like doing private jets.
I
So,
feel like I've heard all of these, but clearly one of these is a lie. So now this is my memory
mm-hmm.
just going awry. Was it a cousin's wedding when you were out there?
It was, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because like I remember parts of these things. Ryan Gosling.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the second? Mom Brady. Yeah. Um, I'm gonna say Ryan Gosling.
That's the lie.
I think Ryan Gosling is the lie.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Mhm.
But I have a terrible memory, so that doesn't mean anything. All right, John.
Challenging. Yeah, it feels like I could just flip a coin, a three-sided coin. Uh, I'm gonna go with Brady because there weren't extra details there.
Hmm.
Mm.
But that could just be throwing off because you know a lot about celebrities too, and you would just be able to extrapolate any story. Um, yeah. And you didn't say Reese Witherspoon, which I would have identified as a Nashville sighting.
Reese, that was crazy. That was a crazy story. Yeah, I did see Joan Cusack in ORD, which was
Oh.
wild because she did not want to be seen. And I did like a head swivel where I was like, oh, she was like, put her head down. I was like, she does not want anyone to talk to her. So I did not talk to her.
Nice.
Yeah.
Being a good citizen. All right.
Okay. So it's actually Maria Shriver.
Oh.
Oh,
I did see Maria Shriver. She was at the wedding at the church. She came in late.
Oh my
And I remember,
gosh.
like, it's like we're all standing there, and then you turn to see the bride walk down, and you're like, and then like the wedding's over, and you turn around, and she's already gone. So I guess she was really good friends with the mother of the bride.
Oh
So
wow.
I did not see her at the airport, but I did see her.
That
So
is a good lie.
yeah.
You know people, you know how to lie well. That's a good one.
yeah. Carolyn appreciated the LAX related content.
Oh, good.
Nice. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
we did it. Like I said, we should probably go ahead and schedule number two, number three, and number four so we can talk about the other 95% of things that I had kind of written down to talk about. I am curious though, any other creative, like are you writing, you mentioned the podcast, getting that back together. Anything else you want to promote or share or talk about?
It's interesting. So I am podcasting, I think is going to be a big thing to look for. And then I do need to and be writing. One thing we didn't talk about today is marketing at
Mm.
all, which has been so interesting. I need to start writing blogs for my website, and then but I haven't had time to do that. So those I would say are the two things. And then, probably in the next year, maybe would help on a shoot again at some point. But yeah, that not much. Just, I've been enjoying the running my business. It's funny when you say entrepreneur because I'm like, I'm not an entrepreneur. And then I'm like, oh yes, I am an entrepreneur because I started
Yeah.
my own business.
Yeah. Well, and I like to make the distinction between serial entrepreneur and
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, and like you can, be successful at both. I'm not a
Yeah.
serial entrepreneur, just an entrepreneur who's found a couple things that can be somewhat successful,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and I think
It's
that's a big
it's like
deal.
the difference between are you interested in making businesses or are you interested in a subject matter and you made a business to
Yeah.
work in that subject matter?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to follow me on Instagram just to really see my cats and my dog, that's at Jules E. Smith, Julzie Smith. And if you want to follow me more around my mental health stuff, I believe it's at Be Grounded Therapy, both on Instagram and Facebook. And I haven't, you guys posted on there, and I think it's the first time something's been posted in like a year. So really, I need to
Oh,
up my
nice. Yeah.
social media game quite
Yeah.
a bit.
That'll
Yeah.
encourage some growth there. And we did,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we did share some of those. We'll share them again down below if you didn't write those down as Julia was talking. But that's what we got for today. Thanks so much for coming on, Julia. It was great to for 5 minutes catch up and talk to you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. And yeah, I'd love to come back. This was super fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Thanks, everybody. Let's see. Next week we have Ryan Dombrowski coming on, who I don't know if you remember from school, John, but I remember we went to school with him. Also, was friends of another friend. Now he's a producer in Milwaukee. Just a super creative guy. That'll be super fun. So tune in for that. Same bat time, same bat place. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.